Okay, let's get this started. I'm going to first show you the fabric choices that Lisa and I chose. She chose a variation of different dark blue batiks with white background fabric, and I chose a charm pack from Moda Fabrics called Sakura Park. I chose out of that pack the pinks and greens to go in my top. So let's get started.
Okay, good afternoon. We're here with Lisa Merkel of Sew Creative in Van Wert, neighborhood group of the American Sewing Guild. This is going to be our first intro video on the Mystery Quilt 2022. So, Lisa, take it away.
All right, ladies, you should have already received your information on what you needed for fabric. You got to go fabric shopping, which is always the best part. And I am going to start with step one, which is what do you do with these 10-inch squares? This is going to be a fairly quick quilt. It's got large pieces, which I like. It has minimal cutting, which I like. And so that's why I volunteered to do this year, is because I'm pretty much a pre-cut gal. So let's get started. Your first step was take your background squares. Take 16 of what you're using for your background squares, cut them from 10-inch down to 9.5-inch squares. I don't think I need to show anybody how to do that. I think you're pretty good at trimming things down. So take those squares, set them aside. We'll use them later. Okay, for your 5-inch squares, your background squares, you're just going to cut those down 1/2 inch and make them 4.5-inch squares instead of the 5, and we made the 10 9.5. If you're using 10-inch squares, this is step one. Anytime I talk about 10-inch squares, if you're doing the smaller quilt or the wall hanging, that is going to be the 5-inch squares. Just pretend I said 5-inch instead of 10-inch. It's all done the same way, put together the same way, cut the same way. So when I say 10-inch, maybe I'll try to just say squares. Okay, now we're going to take 20 of your 10-inch background squares. Okay, in my case, I'm using white. We're going to take 20 of these and mark a line on them from corner to corner. Okay? If you see here, this one I have already marked. A lot of times, there goes everything. A lot of times, I just use my ruler and go from corner to corner. I take my handy dandy little marking pen and just put a line from one corner to the other. Now, some people may prefer using the Fons and Porter Omni Grid, and it's a little different. You put that from corner to corner and you're going to draw a line on both sides. You get your ruler set up on the corner and you're going to draw a line on both sides, which gives you your sewing line. Some people prefer to do that. They want the sewing line and not the cutting line. So whichever way you prefer, whichever method you prefer, I just pretty much use my cutting ruler and just go from corner to corner with my marker. You're going to have to mark 20 of your squares, and then after that we'll start putting them together. So get them all marked real quick.
Are they going to cut them too, or
No,
just marking?
we're just marking. No cutting, just marking. Okay? Now, after you get all of your background squares marked, your 20 squares marked from corner to corner, what we're going to do is we're going to take those. Okay, and when you're marking them on the wrong side. Okay, so you're going to mark them on the wrong side. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take one of your patterned squares that's 10-inch or 5-inch and put right sides together. Your right side of your fabric, colored fabric, and then your background square goes on top of that. And I know some of you are going to say, oh no, she's doing half square triangles and I hate half square triangles. I love half square triangles. I make a lot of half square triangle quilts. I would trade you that for a log cabin block any day of the week. So, okay, we've got those right sides together, and now we're going to sew. You're going to do a 1/4 inch seam away from a 1/4 inch on each side of your marked line, okay?
Lisa, do you have any tips on not stretching your fabric when you're sewing on the diagonal?
I don't pull on it. I just let the fabric go. I'm not pulling on it. The nice thing about this is when we get to the point where we're squaring up our blocks, this is just very forgiving. So I don't notice that they really stretch. Okay, we've gone down the one side. I'm turning it around, and we're going to go down the other side.
What are your thoughts on pre-washing fabric before you make a quilt?
I am not a pre-washer. Everything I have read says that you should not pre-wash pre-cuts because they have a tendency to ravel and then make a mess. I personally haven't really ever had any problems with them, so I don't worry about it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now if you look, you're going to look at this and say, oh, Lisa, I see purple underneath that white. That's not real close there. The best thing about this pattern in doing these half square triangles is it's very forgiving. If your fabric ends up a little wonky or something is kind of slid one way or the other when you did your seams across, it doesn't make that big of a difference because that all kind of comes out in the wash when we square our blocks. Okay. The next thing we're going to do with this then is cut this. So you see I've got my mark here, my mark on my pin, and that is where I'm going to line my ruler up here, and I'm going to cut right on that line. Okay, we have 2 half square triangle blocks. There they are. So you got 2 blocks out of one, and look at my, see when I told you that I didn't do a real good job? Don't anybody freak out. It all comes out in the wash and works well. So, okay.